I think it might be a little bit worse in some individualistic countries like the United States, Australia, Canada, Europe, because there's so much focus on, I could do this myself and I don't need anybody. And I don't think that that is shared in other cultures as often. There's more of a community focus. And so I think you have to learn how to get along with other people. And when you have a culture that values individuality and the child or person could just say, you know what, I can choose my friends, I can choose my family, then there's no incentive to have to work it out. There's no incentive to have to try to push through the hard things and still maintain a healthy relationship with somebody. Even if you don't agree on everything, you can still have a relationship. You may not have to be that close, but you could still have a decent relationship. But I think what happens in our culture, at least very individualistic cultures, is there's this complete cutoff. And I feel like it's easier to do when it's something that you grew up doing and you don't know any other way of operating. When you start to then form a relationship, when these young people grow up and they try to develop their own relationships, they're going to be attracted to relationships that feel comfortable to them. It'll feel like a normal thing. But then when they realize how abusive it is when they become alienated from their own children, then it's a double whammy at that point because they realize they were alienated and now they're being alienated again. So that's the intergenerational component to it. I don't know the exact prevalence of it. I do know from my research, when I've done qualitative research, I'd say over half of people I've interviewed say that it happened to them. And they didn't realize it till they were older and had their own children. But I can't generalize that to everybody because it wasn't a representative sample. But I do know anecdotally, a lot of people talk about that they didn't know until they were much older and had their own children. And it was happening again. I think that's probably the most important part as a parent is you want to be healthy for when they come back around. And it's hard to stay healthy when you've experienced that kind of loss. But if they do, and if there's an opening to come back, you want to be in a place where you could receive them and not be bitter. Don't talk to them about what happened. They don't want to talk about it. If they do, just tell them the door's open. They'll come and I'm happy to answer any questions you have to give you my perspective on it. Not to tell you the truth. Don't tell kids that, then they'll defend the alienator. Say, when you're ready, I'm happy to share that with you. But they never asked you. And if you feel compelled to try to explain yourself to your child, don't do it because you're only doing that for yourself. You want to do what they're ready to hear from you on what happened and, your perspective. And know that it's not an easy thing. Even when children leave a cult or when adults leave a cult, they don't just leave. They often go back several times. So it's not always an immediate, I'm out and I'm safe. So I think a lot of parents, they get hopeful when their kids come back to them and then why did they go back? It's a natural part of, they're trying to separate and it's not a clean break. The web in which they're tied to their abuser is very strong and getting them out of it. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of shame wrapped up there and children can't contain that. It's hard enough for an adult to contain that kind of feeling. Children don't have the capacity to know how to do it, and nobody's modeled for them how to do it. So unless they have really good therapist who knows how to deal with those feelings, that kid's on their own because the abuser doesn't know how to do it, and they're often not able to even be present to care. So it's important to understand that it's a process to get them out. And it won't be likely an overnight thing. If they don't come back, just understand why. But if you're in the best place you can be to receive them, you need to deal with your own trauma about it because how you're going to hold their trauma. How are you going to be the safe place for them to process that trauma? You need to be that for them. They're going to look for alerts all the time. So even though they might be reconnecting with you, understand that they have internalized this very negative attitude towards you. And they're going to look for any signs that might tell them that what they're doing is wrong. Because they're not trusting their gut at this point. They're like, okay, I don't trust what my alienating parent is telling me. I might try to reconcile with my other parent to see if what they're telling me is true, or they want to verify it maybe. And their hackles are up. They're making sure that, it's kind of like a animal coming out of a hole trying to kind of see if it's safe, right? The best analogy. And any little thing could scare them. I mean, not that you want to walk on eggshells. You don't want to do that either. You want to be as genuine as you can. But in order to be genuine and be able to hold your child's emotions when they do this, you need to be in the best place you could be.